Okay, this is the ultimate guide to arrival at Liberia Airport in Guanacaste, Costa Rica. I strapped a GoPro to my chest and walked around the entire airport so that we could give you an inside look at everything you need to know to arrive in Guanacaste with confidence. I also sketched these custom airport floor plans. Please don't make fun of my drawings. And we used the timestamps on our videos to create a custom timer so that you could see exactly how long each step of the process is going to take. There isn't another video like this on YouTube. I know, because when we took our first trip to Costa Rica, we scoured YouTube looking for helpful information that would give us what we needed to be able to plan our trip to Costa Rica. The problem is, as you've found, most of the videos on YouTube are other people having fun in Costa Rica, but there's just not a lot of videos that are very helpful in planning your trip to Costa Rica. So we just decided to start making the videos that we wish we would have had on our first trip to Costa Rica to help you plan your trip to Costa Rica with confidence. So in this video, we're gonna walk through the 4 phases of arrival at Liberia's Guanacaste Airport, and you'll be ready to go. First up is landing. You're not surprised by this. That's what you do when you arrive at an airport. You're likely gonna get some pretty sweet views just before landing. If you happen to have a window seat and you can look out, you're gonna be flying over Cozumel, Belize, the Cayman Islands. You'll probably fly over some pretty killer beaches, even on the northwest side of Costa Rica, depending upon your approach path into Guanacaste Airport, also known as LIR, also known as Daniel Oduber Quiros International Airport, which literally nobody calls it that because
ain't nobody got time for that.
Most Costa Ricans just call it Liberia or Guanacaste Airport. When you touch down, and let's just start our timer there, one of the first things you're gonna notice is just how green everything is, especially if you're landing during rainy season. Guanacaste Airport is a small airport. There is 1 runway, there are no taxi lanes. In fact, it was only just recently they actually added a really nice terminal. Given the fact that there are no taxi lanes, it means that depending upon which direction you land in, you may have to wait at the far end of the runway before you can taxi back to the airport. This is totally normal, and here's what I mean by that. If you look at the layout of the runway, if you land in this direction and you're down here at the far end of the runway, you have to make a U-turn to taxi back down the runway to the airport terminal. That only takes a few minutes, but there's no extra taxi lane. And so that means if there's another plane about to land, you can't taxi down the runway yet. If that happens, it's usually only about 15 to 20 minutes, but let's be honest, it feels like an eternity because you've been trapped in this flying box for far too long already. If you land in this direction, then your plane will literally just pull right up to the gate in about 2 minutes. This last time around, we did get stuck at the end of the runway. We landed in this direction and we were sitting there waiting for a flight, which then also got delayed. So this time around, our flight got to the gate. People started getting off exactly 27 minutes after we touched down. That is literally the longest that has ever taken us. A normal time for landing and taxiing, if you're not waiting on another flight, is gonna be typically about 5 or 10 minutes. It's pretty quick. So we'll put that as our minimum landing time, and we'll put the 27 minutes for our maximum landing time. But that's honestly not really where you need to worry about time. Immigration is actually the place where you can get bogged down if a bunch of flights have arrived at the same time, and that will usually take you quite a bit longer. So let's walk you through immigration, show you what that looks like so you can be as prepared as possible to get through immigration quickly. But if you're planning a trip to Costa Rica, let me just encourage you to grab our Costa Rica travel guide. We put this together just to try to be a help with some of the most important information about planning a trip to Costa Rica. It's free, it's a PDF you can download. You can get a link to that in the description. We hope that that'll be a huge help to you as you plan your trip. So the second phase of arrival at Liberia Airport is immigration. Immigration is the part that can typically take the longest depending upon how many flights have arrived at the same time. And let's add a timer for immigration, and we'll also keep our total timer running so you can kind of get a picture of how long this has taken us to get through the airport. When you first get off of your flight, your plane will have pulled up to one of 7 gates at the terminal. Typically, they maximize the use of the 4 main gates, which are the ones that have the jetways, where you can walk out of the plane and directly into the building. But occasionally, if the 4 gates with jetways are already being used, they have planes at them that pull you up to another one and roll up the stairways to your plane. You get off and walk across the tarmac and up a set of steps into the building at one of the other gates. So you'll probably arrive at one of these 4 gates, but regardless of which gate you arrive at, you're gonna end up in the same section of the building because there's a glass walkway that runs the full length of the back end of the building there that faces out onto the runways. And all of the gates let out into this walkway, which basically funnels you all to the same place, which is an escalator that leads you down into immigration. As you come down the escalator, you can get a good look pretty quickly at the line for immigration. Sometimes it's empty down here. Honestly, the later in the day that you fly in, the less people will be here, but it really just depends on how many flights have arrived just before you. But if you've ever arrived at a major city like Moscow, Rome, Cabo San Lucas, something like that, then this is obviously super small, super low key. It's really unintimidating. Here's an overview of the immigration area. You come down the escalator here, the line wraps around this way through the middle of the room, and after you talk to an immigration officer at one of the booths, you go through back here to get your luggage next. And we'll cover luggage, customs, and all of that in just a minute, but let's walk through the details on immigration. When you first come down the escalator or the stairs, immediately to your left, and maybe even just a little bit behind you, it'll feel like, is the restrooms. But remember that if you go to the restrooms when you first come down the stairs, then everyone who was previously behind you from your flight is now going to be ahead of you in line. So maybe if you can, get in line first and then send 1 or 2 people at a time from your party to use the bathroom. When we got there this time, the line was about this long and all of the counters were open. We made it through the line in about 11 minutes. We were up to the counter. And when you get to the front of the line, you'll walk up to the next counter available and talk to an immigration officer. So even while you're in line, you can kind of be getting your stuff ready. They're gonna wanna see your passport, they're gonna wanna see any documentation of where you're staying, and they're gonna wanna see proof of a departing flight. I print out all of these things in advance, the documentation on where we're staying, the proof of a departing flight, and I just have them in my backpack ready to go. But in most cases, you can just show them on your phone and it's not that big of a deal. I'll blur this guy's face, but the literal questions that he asked us are, where are you going during your trip here? Do you have flights home? And what dates are you here? When do you fly home? If you're from the US, Canada, or the EU, you can stay in Costa Rica for up to 180 days without a visa. You don't need to apply for anything in advance for that. You just show up. The immigration officer is going to stamp your passport, and part of the stamp actually has a line where he will write the number of days that you are allowed to be in the country. Typically, he's gonna write 90 days or 180 days, sometimes very sloppy, but it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Most people don't need to have any vaccines or any proof of vaccines or anything like that to get into Costa Rica unless you're coming from one of the countries of risk. Here's the list of what those are. You can pause the video and take a look at that. Also put a QR code on screen here. You can scan this with your phone and that'll give you more details and information on arrival and what the kind of things are that they're looking for, what the vaccine requirements are, and all of that kind of stuff. But again, it's pretty low key. So here's our times for landing and getting off the plane. Then it took us 11 minutes in the line, 2 minutes at the counter for a total of 13 minutes in immigration. Here's all of the totals for those things. So that's pretty normal. We've gotten through this in 5 or 6 minutes before when we showed up and we were some of the first people off of our flight and there was really nobody ahead of us. We've heard people say that it's taken them 45 minutes to an hour to get through this section. I could definitely see that happening if several flights showed up and this whole area was full and you were the last ones in line. Now, don't make this mistake. Once you're done at the counter, you're gonna walk back towards baggage and customs, and we'll cover the details of customs and all of those things in just a minute. But as you're walking towards the area where you're gonna get your luggage, on your way between immigration and baggage claim, there is a currency exchange and a duty-free shop on the left. Do not, under any circumstances, exchange money at this currency exchange unless it is just absolutely an emergency. This is the worst rate in the entire world. That might be an exaggeration. If you're gonna exchange money here though, you might as well just leave your wallet at the counter and go on your trip without it. Let's take a look at the third section, baggage claim and customs. But let me say that if you want to impress your spouse with all of the tips and tricks you know about traveling to Costa Rica, then you should subscribe to Finding Mangoes so you can travel to Costa Rica with confidence. As you get into the baggage claims and customs area, this part's pretty straightforward. And let's start our timer for baggage claim and customs and just see how long. I think you're gonna see there's really hardly a need for a timer in this section. There are only 2 carousels to get get your luggage from, it's already pretty obvious. If you've spent any amount of time in immigration, then they have probably already stopped the moving carousels and taken your luggage off of them and lined it up for you here. So you grab your luggage, pretty self-explanatory, and then you head towards customs. Now, on your left, as you're walking towards the customs area, there's going to be a row of counters for rental cars. These are rental car desks for people who have not yet booked a rental car. You should have already booked your rental car in advance, and if that's the case, then you can walk right past these counters. You don't need to go talk to them. That's just for if you don't have a rental car already reserved. Once you have your luggage and you walk over to the customs area, there might be a little bit of a short line here, but when you get up there, you just throw your bag up onto the conveyor belt for the X-ray machine. And if you've ever wondered what's inside one of these, well, here you go. The static that you see is my GoPro getting blasted with 160 kilo electron volts of X-ray protons. And while we're in here, let me just summarize for you really fast what they're looking for in your bag. Here's what you can bring. You can bring duty-free alcohol. You can bring tobacco. You can bring food as long as it's packaged and shelf stable. You can bring medication for personal use. You can bring cameras, laptops, drones, all of that. Here's a list of the things you cannot bring. You cannot bring fresh fruit, vegetables, plants, seeds, soil, cuttings, anything like that. You cannot bring any kind of meat, pork, or animal products. All of the obvious no-nos. You probably shouldn't bring things like firearms, ammunition, illegal drugs, and substances of that nature. If you're planning to bring more than $10,000, you can do that, but there are some details you need to know about declaring that. Again, check the details on the QR code for more information on that. Okay, that might have felt like it took a while. Honestly, in real time, we put our bags on the conveyor belt and we made it through customs in just about 1 minute. It might have been just a little bit over a minute. You can take a look at the official timer down there. And after the X-ray machine, you just walk through, grab your bags on the other side, and this whole process is honestly super low key as long as you don't have anything you're not supposed to. I mean, look at this guy. He looks like he needs a coconut drink with one of those little umbrellas and some sunglasses or something. Getting our suitcases from baggage claim took about a minute. Walking over to X-ray machine took about a minute. The X-ray and customs took about 1 minute, and the whole thing took like 3 or 4 minutes. And that's honestly probably about average for this part. You pretty much crank right through there pretty quickly, as long as you don't have anything that you weren't supposed to bring with you, so it's good to know that in advance. Finally, as we get towards leaving the airport, that's really more of the hassle as you kind of think about getting a ride, what that's going to look like. We'll cover the details of that next. So after you get your luggage, you walk through customs, you will walk out these double doors, and once you've passed through right here, you are now out into the official public area of the airport now. So you're outside the security perimeter, and now it's time to just get your ride and go enjoy your vacation. When we think about finding your ride, there are typically 3 different primary options, and we're going to cover each one of those here. Down there is the departure area for when you're leaving Costa Rica, when you come back at the end of your trip, and you can check out our other video that covers departure from Guanacaste Airport. We'll put a link to that in the description and at the end of this video. The first of the 3 options for getting a ride is a private hotel transfer. If you're taking the private transfer and you've already paid for this in advance, like the W, the Westin, the JW Marriott, then you'll find the spot for that right here immediately outside the customs area. There's going to be signs for all the different hotels depending upon where you're going. Second, if you're planning on getting a rental car, and this is our preferred means of transportation while we're in Costa Rica, then you're just going to need to have a little bit of patience because there aren't any rental car locations on the property at the airport. All of them are down the street somewhere. So you're going to have to get a shuttle over to the building where the actual rental cars are, but this can take a little bit of time. Either way, the process is going to be about the same regardless of what rental car company you went with. We've gone with several different companies here, and we do recommend which companies you should plan to use and which companies not to use in our video on renting a car in Costa Rica. You can check that out at the end of this video or in the description. Basically, you just find the sign for the rental car company that you're going with. This time around, we went with Alamo. We went and found the lady right here. And sometimes if there's a shuttle shuttle waiting outside already, they just walk you straight out to the shuttle. If they're waiting for the shuttle to get back and it's looped back and forth to the airport, then they'll put you in a little, like a line right over here somewhere. If you need to use the bathroom, they're just right down there. When the shuttle is ready, they'll walk you right down this way. You're gonna go out through those doors. By the way, the bathroom's again right there on the left. And there'll be a shuttle right outside the building here. You jump in that, it's typically like a 15-passenger van type of thing, and they'll take you down the street to the rental car company. Again, to give you an idea of the timing here, we got in line, waited in line for about 13 minutes. We loaded our luggage into the shuttle, got into the shuttle, drove down the street. The rental car company is just 5 to 10 minutes down the street from the airport, so you'll be there pretty quickly. You'll get in line inside, and then just depending upon how long it takes, sometimes 5 to 10 minutes. This time around, we ended up waiting for 38 minutes. Now back at the airport, there is a third way that you may be traveling once you fly into Costa Rica, and that is via private business shuttle. If that's you, then when you exit out of the customs area, you're just gonna turn around, walk past the bathrooms, and maybe you noticed these guys as we were walking out the door, find the guy holding up the right sign, and you're all set. Now, at the end of your trip, you are gonna be headed back out the other half of the same airport, so make sure you check out our ultimate guide to departure from Liberia's Guanacaste Airport. You can see that here. And if you're planning on renting a car, then you want to check out our video on renting a car. We'll put that right here and also a link in the description. If this video was helpful, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to Finding Mangoes, and have a great trip.